she had a falling out with Big Jim. She was mad at him because he was getting all of the credit. And she thought she was the star, but he was. And at one point, she tried to initiate help from other people, one being me. Mm-hmm. Well, I recognized what she was trying to do, and I thought, oh, no, I'm not going to get in the middle of this. I shouldn't even really be telling this story, but I am.
Watch out for Raquel Welch.
Hi, I'm Rob Word. Welcome to A Word on Westerns, and our guest today is the very versatile Michael Forrest, because not only did Michael play many Native Americans, and he says, whoa, not how, he said, whoa, I don't want to do them again. So he stopped doing that, and he played Apollo on a Star Trek episode, and he also did 3 episodes of my all-time favorite series, Gunsmoke. Mm-hmm. Michael, let's hear all about this.
Well, you mentioned Gunsmoke. Mark Rydell directed me in one of the segments with Katharine Ross. Mm-hmm. And at a certain point, she's trying to hire me as a killer. We're doing this scene in which I have to slap her. So I thought, here's this beautiful face. I'm going to slap her. And I kind of faked it with my fingers open. And she said, no, you've got to slap me. You've got to hit me harder than that. I took a break at that point. I went to Mark, the director, and I said, she wants me to really hit her. And he said, oh my God. Well, I guess you've got to hit her, but don't break that face. And I said, God forbid I should. We've started the scene again. And I slapped her across the face. You could hear it. And it was what she wanted. The tears came to her eyes because I'd hurt her a little bit. Tears came to her eyes, and she did the scene with me. Perfect. One take. Absolutely perfect. And afterwards, when they collared cut, she came to me. She said, thank you. Thank you for hitting me. And I said, thank God I didn't hurt you. She said, no, you didn't. It was just what I needed. And I thought, wow, talk about an actress that really wants to do it the right way. It was wonderful. Mm-hmm. At least she was. I don't know what I was doing.
Oh, well, you did what you needed to do. And that episode, I think, had R.G. Armstrong and Eileen Eckert as her mother.
That's right.
Oh,
R.G.
Boy.
R.G. and I had a fight, had to do a fist fight in the thing. And he was kind of awkward, a big man, but a little awkward, and but big and strong. And I said to him, look, because the stunt guys couldn't get to him, and I said, look, R.G., look, when you swing at me, you swing hard, aim at my head. I'm going to duck. I'm going to duck on it, but you just aim at my head and throw your right hand punch. Okay, Mike, okay. Well, he aimed at my head and aimed the whole way I was ducking and hit me on top of the head with that right hand fist. I'm telling you, he damn near cold cocked me altogether. I went down on the ground and everything was fuzzy. And everything hollered, cut. And everybody ran up and said, yeah, Mike, are you all right? And I'm sitting there, I think so. I'm not altogether sure. I'd really been hit hard. Wow. And this was a big man. Mm-hmm. And he was devastated that he'd actually hit me. He raised a knot on his knuckle, half the size of an egg. And I mean, when he hit me, he hit me. It was, it was an accident. He didn't mean to, but it was like one of those times when I thought, wow, good thing he didn't hit me straight in the face. I wouldn't have had a face left.
Well, then Mark Rydell, as a director in that, because that was early for his career, and he'd been an actor
Yeah,
as
a
well.
good actor. He was an excellent actor and an excellent director.
How did he talk to the actors?
Just as easily. It was just, he'd say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. He was very calm, knew exactly what he wanted, and when he knew that the actor knew what he was doing, he was like, okay, let's shoot it. It was easygoing. And particularly when you got a shot like that with Katharine Ross and the one take. And
It's a good thing R.G. wasn't slapping her.
Oh my God. He'd have killed her. He damn near killed me.
One of the feature films that you did that was very successful had an unusual cast. It had Jim Brown, Raquel Welch, and Burt Reynolds before he became the superstar.
Yeah.
100 Rifles.
100 Rifles.
Burt was just on the cusp of stardom back then.
Yeah, he was. I was on it for 3 months. And it was quite an experience. I can tell you one thing. One day, Jim was playing chess outside one of the tents, and there was a small group watching it. And I could see what he was doing to his opponent. And the opponent was thinking, should he make this move? And I stood there watching, and I knew just what Jim had done. He had set him up, and I thought, oh boy, this guy's going to fall for it. And he hesitated, and finally he took that piece and he moved it. I said, huh! I went like that. And Jim looked at me with this look in his eyes. He said, this is my game, not yours. And the guy moved the piece back. And I realized I had created a bad image there at that point, and for him. Later on, we kind of got into a bit of a heads-on with each other. And he kind of backed me up into, we were at lunch, and we were toe-to-toe talking. And at a certain point, he backed me up against a wall. And I said to him, Jim, I have no place to go, but I got to come forward now. And I said, number one isn't going to look too good either. And he looked at me and he started to smile and he said, Big Mike always knows the right thing to say. Now, not that he was afraid of me.
No.
He was not afraid of anybody. And he said, Big Mike. And he walked away, and that was the end of it. And did I blow a sigh of relief? You bet I did. He was 30 pounds, at least 30 pounds heavier, tougher, stronger. And I didn't want to have anything to do with him at that. Later on, we became pretty good friends.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah.
Did he get on with Burt Reynolds?
We got along all right. Yeah, we got along.
Did Jim Brown get on with Burt?
Yeah, they got along. They got along pretty well. Yeah.
Did everybody want Raquel?
She was funny. She had a falling out with Big Jim. She was mad at him because he was getting all of the credit, and she thought she was the star, but he was. And at one point, she tried to initiate help from other people, one being me. Well, I recognized what she was trying to do, and I thought, oh no, I'm not going to get in the middle of this. I shouldn't even really be telling this story, but I am. And so she decided to hook up with a Spanish actor who was kind of playing a small part on the show. Handsome guy and whatnot. Well, one day her husband arrived on the set, on the set, unbeknownst to her, and then they went to their hotel. Well, this handsome young Spanish actor made an appearance at the door with a bottle of champagne, and the husband answered the door. Well, he put a few bruises on Raquel. She couldn't work for a couple of days. Oh, he was pretty angry. And I said, thank God I didn't get into that whole situation. I just...
Now, that film was written and directed by Tom Gries, who's
Tom Gries.
really a favorite of mine.
Well, he was a good guy, very good guy. I got a story to tell about that.
I love it.
One day we were sitting there watching a scene. Jim, Burt, and Raquel were doing this scene. She was standing in the scene with a gun, with a 30-30, and they would rehearse it, and at the end of it, she was to fire the gun up, but she was always pointing it at Jim and pulling the trigger. And I watched that twice, and I thought, holy mackerel, wait a minute. The producer was sitting there. I said, listen, I want you to watch this next rehearsal. Just watch what takes place. Again, the rehearsal. She did the whole thing, but she turns the gun and points it right at Jim and pulls the trigger. Now, there was no blank in it. This guy literally leaped out of the bench that he was sitting on. He said, oh my God, he went to the director, Tom Gries. And Tom, they had this conversation. And Tom turned to Raquel and said, look, we're going to make a separate cut of you. You're not going to be in this shot. It'll be a separate cut, okay? And that was the end of that.
Wow.
He would have thrown, we were on the edge of a cliff. Jim would have thrown her right off the cliff. He would have, had she had shot him with a blank. He would have thrown her right off the cliff. He would have. And I could see it. I thought, oh my God. Because there was animosity. Even in the scene, you could tell he just didn't even like her on the set. Oh.
Well, how could he have allowed, even in rehearsal, for her to point an unloaded gun?
She wasn't supposed to. She was supposed to point it up and pull the trigger. She would be holding it during that and turn and pull the trigger. It was almost like
Like a you.
exactly. Oh my God.
We should have killed him.
Anyway, that kind of crazy stories.
Well, that film turned out to be a pretty big hit, too.
Well, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It was. They had some pretty good moments in it. I was just there, you know.
You had that nice wig.
Oh yes, I was cute as a bunny, and I had a lot of fun because I didn't have to learn any lines or anything like that. All I had to do was do a lot of running. I was part of an Indian tribe that ran.
Your ability at different accents, I think, has come in really handy, because in looking at your credits, you have dozens and dozens and dozens of animated shows, and I've never heard of any of them.
Nor have I anymore.
But, I mean, that's a lot of good work, though.
Well,
Steady,
I did a lot of French accents, Spanish, of course, the Irish. I did all kinds of accents. Some of them I could do well, some of them not so well, but most of the time I could do them reasonably well.
Well, did you fall into that when you were in Europe shooting films?
Mostly, yeah. That's where they did an awful lot of voice work.
Did you dub other films that would be released in America of Westerns?
Oh, yeah. I did a lot of...
Who did you do?
Well, let me think a second. Let me think. I did Jack Palance in 3 films. And if somebody said, well, can you do an imitation of Jack Palance? I can't. But Jack Palance had certain words that he would say in a certain way. And he had a voice like this, kind of raspy. And I forget now the words, but I would hear him say a certain word or phrase, and I could duplicate that. And I remember once I had just finished doing a couple of lines, and the producer came in and heard the replay. And he said, I didn't know we had Jack on that. Director said, that's not Jack, that's Mike. Wow. And so I did Edmund Purdom, British actor, who I got to know very well. Played him, did his after he had died. And I did so many actors I've forgotten. So many that I did.
That was a fun time over there, I think, wasn't it?
It was great.
You were there before the spaghetti westerns happened with the peplum, I think they call it. with all the sword and sandal
Oh yeah, a
type
lot of
stuff?
that stuff. I didn't. I did some dubbing in those, but I did mostly the westerns and the
There's
shoot 'em
giallo.
ups. Giallo.
Giallo.
Is the Italian word for gangster movies. Yeah, and I did a lot of those voiceovers and that, and it was great because I was always working. If I wasn't doing my own film in front of the camera, I was doing voiceovers or doing voice replacements. And it was great. I was working all the time. It was wonderful.
Well, when you were growing up, earlier we had talked about Buster Crabbe and how popular he was. Flash Gordon and the camera just loved him. Were there other films that you remember seeing as a kid that meant a lot to you?
It's funny. I remember you mentioned Buster Crabbe. Oh no, not Buster Crabbe. Herman Briggs, who later became Bruce Bennett. He played Tarzan in a series in the 35, 36, something like that. It was probably the worst television show I've ever seen, and he was awful in it. Now, he became a very good actor later on, but in that series, it was so badly done. I swear to God, I thought, is this for real? Am I watching something that they put money into?
Did you see that later in life, or did you see it as a kid?
I saw it as a kid.
And you knew that right away? How terrible he was?
Well, I knew it. I didn't know why I didn't like it, but it just seemed so phony to me. I didn't know. I was 7, 6, 7, 8 years old. What did I know? Didn't know anything. But I mean, I know I didn't like it. But later on, Bruce Bennett became a very good actor.
So Treasure of Sierra Madre,
Treasure
one of the
Sierra
great
Madre
films.
was wonderful in that, wonderful. As was everybody in it. God. John Huston, Walter Huston. Oh.
Bogey, all good. Tim Holt.
Oh yeah, wonderful.
Well, how about Roger Corman? What do you remember about Roger? He was fast as a shooter, wasn't he?
Fast, fast. I did 5 films with Roger.
In 5 days.
4.5.
Okay. Faster than I thought then.
Well, Roger worked on the inexpensive, I wouldn't call him cheap, but I'll give him...
You'd be the only one then.
Actually, Roger was Roger knew what he was doing.
He's a wonderful producer.
Yeah, people would say, well, what does Roger know? Roger knew everything. He wasn't as dumb as people thought he was. He was and if he said you were going to get a sandwich for lunch, you got that sandwich. And I mean, if he said you were going to get one thing, that's what you got. I remember once we were shooting a scene, I forget. It wasn't on me, I think it was on Frank Wolf. And it was a close-up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Snow was coming down like crazy. It was like 25 degrees or something like that. Frank said something, "Can anybody see me?" And I went behind the camera. I couldn't see anything but snow. And I said, "Roger, we can't see anything." He said, "Cut, that's a print, we're out of here." And we went down the hill and got a drink at the bar in Deadwood. Oh my God, but I would give credit to Roger. Roger could make films on practically nothing. And they weren't bad. They weren't great by any stretch of the imagination, but they weren't bad.
Well, they filled a need in the marketplace. This was at a time when drive-in theaters were booming.
Oh, yeah.
And you even went to Europe and played Atlas for Roger.
Played Atlas.
Now, he mostly made films here in this country.
Well, yeah, that's true. But he did shoot there. We shot in Athens. And we shot Atlas. And
you were Atlas.
I was Atlas. The actor in it who was the best was Frank Wolf. Frank Wolf.
And Roger used him a lot also.
Used him a lot. Well, Frank and Roger were like that.
Like what? Give an example.
Well, because Frank was really a serious type actor. And
What was he doing with Roger?
Yeah, that's what that. And he'd say, "What am I doing here with this clown?" I literally kept them apart because Frank wanted to kill him a couple of times. I had to step in between. I said, "Frank, come on." And Frank was a very good actor. Unfortunately, he committed suicide at the age of 43.
Oh.
God,
Didn't he stay in Europe and make spaghetti westerns too?
he did, and he was wonderful. I saw some of them. His family came over, his mother and father, and we saw 3 of his films in one day. And I tell you, I had never seen him before, and he was just brilliant.
Why did he commit suicide?
Terrible. He had problems. He had problems. He was a wonderful actor, but he'd been in therapy for 20 years, and he shouldn't have been. I spent a lot of time with him trying to help him. I was no therapist by any matter, but I tried to help him. I couldn't. Very sad, very sad. Wonderful actor.